So after 9 hours and 16 minutes of live streaming the UFC's 304 Manchester on top of Derek Chisora versus Joyce, we're going to talk about Belal Muhammad's win as the first Palestinian American to win the undisputed UFC championship. And then we're going to talk about Muhammad Mokaev and his possible exit out of the UFC as an undefeated prospect or maybe even a title challenger. We're going to talk about that. But first, let's take a look at the scene that had happened last night after the Belal Muhammad versus Leon Edwards fight. Check this out. So, a lot of people are quite upset at Leon Edwards' loss. Now, go back to the live stream. I did 9 hours and 16 minutes of that whole entire live stream, which, by the way, was a dedication to the area code of Sacramento. 916, 9 hours and 16 minutes. Perfect timing. Great event. Got all of the predictions correct, literally to the T. I had Derek Chisora on the boxing card. He was going to win. Clarissa Shields won. On top of that, all the entire card I had predicted 100%, including the Belal Muhammad and the Tom Aspinall fight, the Paddy Pimblett fight, all of that. I predicted. Go look back at the live stream. I'm going to probably put it in the description below just so you guys can take a look at it for yourself with all the different gems that I've done there. And shout out to Zane Musa Boxing for once again joining me 5 a.m. in the morning. Okay, his local time, just like the rest of the Brits that were watching UFC 304 last night. Great event, classic times. Here we go. I told you that Belal Muhammad, he was going to reach superstardom if he won this belt. And the reason being was because many people did not think that that was going to happen due to the fact that they think he's boring. I would argue that he needed the right dance partner, and that also includes Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards is one of those guys that needs a dance partner in order for him to be successful at his promotion. Well, here comes Belal Muhammad. All throughout the week, they had a situation at the lift, which is called an elevator in America, but they call it lift in England, which is interesting in and of itself. On top of that, they got into it. They got into it at the weigh-ins or at the press conference. He tried to flinch at him. Belal Muhammad didn't move. He spiked him head first on the mat during the fight, which was the highlight of the entire match. So the idea that Belal Muhammad is boring in his fighting style, once again, he had to have been brought out by the right person in order to nullify those ideas. And he did a great job. Leon Edwards did a great job as well. He made a great account of himself, but the takedowns kept adding on and on and on. And before you know it, it was undeniable for the judges to deny him of that, even with a hometown advantage for Leon. But just like what Zane Musa said during the broadcast, I gotten all the predictions correct down to the T. I knew Tom Aspinall was going to finish in the first round. I knew that Belal Muhammad was going to take this fight into deep waters and possibly win a decision, and would have to do it in a dominating fashion in order for him to get the judge's nod, and he did exactly that. Well, what's next? Belal Muhammad has a lot of contenders up ahead. There's Shavkat Rakhmonov, there's Ian Gary, there's a whole bunch of names that he could fight. But what about Leon Edwards? Believe it or not, Leon Edwards is the one that's going to have more of the compelling matchups after this. Because let's face it, all the top contenders in the 170 division, a lot of people don't know who they are. A lot of people don't know what a Shavkat Rakhmonov is. They know what an Ian Gary is. That could be in a horizon, but Ian Gary could be a potential opponent for Leon Edwards. Also, how about Jorge Masvidal? They can bring him out of retirement or whatever it is that he has going on, a frozen contract, bring him out of it, and then come back to fight Leon Edwards and finish off that beef that they had going on with the little street fight back in 2019 in London. Speaking of contracts, let's talk about Muhammad Mokaev. So all throughout the week, he had a situation with El-Kheer fighting all throughout the lobbies and the PI centers and whatnot. The matchmakers, according to Dana White, said that they don't like Muhammad Mokaev. And he went on to say that, you know what, Muhammad Mokaev could be an undefeated flyweight going to the PFL. And I said to myself, wow, that's quite shocking. I remember it was Oscar, or what was his name? Jose Young in MMA Fighting that had asked Dana White this during the post-fight press conference. And everybody was shocked. They were like, Muhammad Mokaev is going to go to the PFL. They're not going to re-sign him. What's up with that? Well, there seems to be a lot of problems behind the scenes that we don't know about. Now, is it because of behavioral issues for Muhammad Mokaev? If that's the case, what would you say to the past infractions of many UFC fighters that have committed probably a whole lot worse atrocities in the name of promotion or in the name of ill behavior or what have you? But Muhammad Mokaev, what's going on? So there's a lot behind the scenes. Is it because he constantly refuses fights or is constantly cherry picking? But then again, what fighter doesn't do that? So there's a lot of mystery going on with this. I would imagine there's going to be more information to come out as time goes on. But for now, we're literally just working off of what Dana White said in the post-fight press conference, on top of the fact that Dana White won't really reveal much other than what he had just mentioned about the matchmakers don't like him. There was all these crazy situations going on, having a street fight at the PI Center all the way to the hotel lobbies of Manchester to the El-Kheer fight. Who knows what is going on with Muhammad Mokaev? One thing is for sure. The UFC is never really definitive in their decisions. They may say that, but they may do other things behind closed doors, or they may try to mitigate whatever infractions or whatever disagreements is going on with this and potentially come up with a contract negotiation with Muhammad Mokaev to a certain degree. There's always the partners of Muhammad Mokaev from the Gulf, the Bahraini royal family, that could perhaps step in, although we don't know how much relationship they have with the UFC in comparison to the Saudis or the Emiratis. Either way, it's an ongoing story that we're going to follow, and I'm sure we're going to continue on with this in the next videos to come and things of that nature. But let's go back to Belal Muhammad, his win, and what he did. And by the way, if you want full breakdowns of everything, go back to the live stream that I did. I did a full breakdown after the fight of the entire card, went over the entire card, went over the wins and losses and the results and whatnot, and talked about live how the fight was going and the technicalities behind it. Check it out. It's going to be on the description below. But here's what I got to say about Belal Muhammad's win. Similar to the win of Leon Edwards, it was magical in a sense that it was similar to a Rocky story, the underdog story. And by the way, this is one of the things that we get into with combat sports. We've all grown up watching Rocky films. We've grown up watching films like The Karate Kid, films like Three Ninjas, or anything that deals with martial arts, sports movies, or combat sports movies, and everything in between. And one of the most successful stories that we gravitate towards is the underdog story. Well, Leon Edwards had it when he was facing Kamaru Usman. Nobody believed in him. It put a lot of people into tears when he said, look at me now. Look at me now. No one would believe me. No one would believe that I would get here. Well, look at me now. He became the champion. He became the #1 guy in the world, only for Belal Muhammad to have the same story as Leon Edwards, to do exactly what Leon Edwards did, which is become that underdog story and a success story at the end of it. So What is the difference between them? Are there any similarities or any differences? No. The only difference is that one side cheers for Leon and the other side cheers for Belal. And of course, as a Muslim community, we're all very happy for Belal. We congratulate him for his win. But you have to understand this. Just like Leon Edwards in his time in his glory, it was temporary. And Belal Muhammad, his could be temporary as well, or he could go on to become the next George St. Pierre and never lose from here. Only time will tell. One thing we know and understand for sure, that this is the type of story that we live for in mixed martial arts and in combat sports. This is the type of stuff that journalists love to write about in order to convey sort of a human interest to people around the world. What we also have with Belal Muhammad is an underdog story where even though people around the world are doubting you, you believed in yourself, and as a result, that belief manifested into now having the whole world ride your back because, let's just face it, everybody wants to ride with the winner. Everybody wants to side with the person that is on the winning side no matter what. So, here's what I got to say about Belal Muhammad and Leon Edwards. Both of them were very similar going into this fight. Everybody said the same things. They were boring. They weren't interesting. But the lead up to the fight, and I got to tell you, it was great. It was entertaining. And it takes two to tango. And both of them did their work promoting the fight and did a great job, better than what they would have ever done in their whole entire career. And why? Because these two guys were made for each other, promotion-wise. In other words, they were perfect for each other. So maybe Belal Muhammad is not the most interesting guy when he fights Vicente Luque, when he fights Randy Brown, or Leon Edwards. Maybe he's not the most interesting guy when he's fighting even Nate Diaz, okay? But it takes two to tango. And this chemistry between them showed that, you know what? The two guys who have a mirroring style and a mirroring image in terms of their promotion, they're actually good for each other. And not only were they good for each other in promotion-wise, well, let's just put it like this. The whole entire fight, I would have given Belal 4-1 in terms of the rounds. 4-1 at best. So it wasn't as competitive. But at the end, Leon gave a good account of himself. There were moments where Leon was very dangerous, especially in the ground, scrambling positions. He's always dangerous on the feet. However, the slow and methodical and very patient style of Leon Edwards did not lend himself very well to a wiry, much more forward-orientated and speed-orientated fighter in Belal Muhammad, in which he implemented last night. So there's a lot of interesting stories that we could really stem from this whole entire weekend. Derek Chisora surprised everybody. And what was the common theme between Derek Chisora and Belal Muhammad? When you're aggressive, when you have a certain style and a certain pace, versus a guy who is basically tailored to be massacred through that particular style that they have of being too patient, well, it lended itself to interesting moments in the fight. Obviously, that one moment where Belal Muhammad spiked him on his head, and the many times that he was landing with just straight jabs and just coming forward really to close a gap. Now, here's another thing I wanted to address, right? A lot of people were saying something to the effect of Canelo this or Canelo that, right? Belal Muhammad says that he's Canelo or this and that. A lot of people were making a big fuss about this, and I'm going to explain to you why. The reason why Many people were making a fuss about this, and I urge you to take a look at my Jake Paul video regarding his boxing career, the post Mike Perry fight. I talk about how people in the boxing world are very protective of certain languages or certain type of takes that many pundits and analysts take. So when you say something to the effect of Belal Muhammad being like Canelo or anything like that, they're going to have reservations about that particular statement. And more times than not, they're going to go after you for it. But the reality is, when Belal Muhammad said that he was going to fight him Canelo style, or that he has hands like Canelo, and he even mentioned that he was going to fight him Mexican style, what he literally meant was this. He was going to go in there, fight close range, use that close range distance to get a hold of his legs and to take him down repeatedly. And that's exactly what happened. Over and over and over and over again, it happened. So that is exactly what he was planning to do. That was the implement that he was trying to take. And not only that, he was trying to prevent Leon from fighting a far range type of fight. He didn't want that because that's where Leon is at his most dangerous. Look at the Kamaru Usman fight. He let off the gas in 1 second, allowing Leon Edwards to breathe within range, and allowing him to breathe within that range opened up that head kick, which was his ultimate demise. Not Belal Muhammad. He was consistent. He was constantly in his face, and he was constantly using his speed, whereas Leon was using his patient, methodical, slow movement, similar to Joyce, in the way that he was exploited by the aggressive style of Chisora. So those two main events in London and Manchester, they really mirrored each other in a way that I think is quite interesting, considering the coincidence of them being the top two fights for the UK that night. But nonetheless, this is what we have going on with this particular video and this particular subject. And there's going to be many fights for Belal Muhammad to come. But believe it or not, even with the loss of Leon Edwards, he's the one that's going to have more of the compelling matchups in the future, because there's Jorge Masvidal that they could bring out, settle their beef and their street fight that they had in 2019, which was caught on camera in front of everybody on ESPN. There's Ian Gary, the bad blood that they have had going on. They were gym mates. He could easily go fight him. There's a whole bunch of other names in the 170 division that Leon Edwards could fight as well. He could also move up at 185. Could you imagine a potential super fight with Leon Edwards, maybe even against Khamzat Chimaev? Who knows? Who knows? There's a lot. There's a lot going on there for Leon Edwards, more than he would if he was just champion. Because I got to be honest with you, you could never do the Jorge Masvidal fight if Leon was champion. Jorge Masvidal just has a long, extensive losing streak, to which it would really make it impossible for Leon as a champion to go and fight him. Well, now that opportunity is open. With Belal Muhammad, he's going to have a lot of names that are unknown in the 170 division that's going to come up, but he's going to be a fighting champion. I believe that he's going to be very active. The way that he lives his lifestyle, very clean, very training orientated, and now more than ever, with Khabib on his side, I think he's going to have that level of consistency that's going to take him to the next level and keep him active in terms of being a fighting champion. So once again, the tables have turned. I remember when, what was it? I believe when Henry Cejudo started losing, or when Kamaru Usman started losing, everybody mentioned how Ali Abdelaziz's guys all of a sudden, oh, they're all losing or this and that. And again, the tables have turned. Now, Ali Abdelaziz is back on top again as one of the top managers. He now has Islam Makhachev. He now has Belal Muhammad as a 170 champion. So he has two champions occupying two neighboring weight classes, 155 and 170. They're back on top again. But that's the overall theme of combat sports, if you already didn't know. It's literally like that. There are days where you win some, and there are days where you lose. And right now, this is one of those moments where they're on cloud nine, and man, it's like that Bush song. Speaking of UK music, right? What was that Bush song that went something like, I never want to leave this high again, or this, you know the song that I'm talking about. You know the band Bush, right? Where he talks, right on the comment section below what song that is, if you can, or if you recognize that in any way. But I never want to come down from this cloud, as the song goes. But always remember, being on that cloud is temporary, okay? It's temporary being on that cloud. But right now, Belal Muhammad is on that cloud. Tom Aspinall is on that cloud. Derek Chisora is on that cloud. Paddy Pimblett is on that cloud. Even though Muhammad Mokaev won, he's on that cloud. And let me talk to you about that again, because I'll end it with Muhammad Mokaev on this one, okay? I truly believe that the UFC is one of those places where, yes, there is a competitive architecture, there is meritocracy, but then there isn't. Well, let me give you an example. Colby Covington was about to get cut from the UFC even after winning. Now, their problem was that he was boring. Again, we don't know a lot about Muhammad Mokaev and what's going on. I've told you earlier in this video, as I'm recording this right now, that we're going to find out more information later on. But to further elaborate on it, I do find it interesting that the UFC is willing to let go of the best guys in the world. And then you got to ask yourself, at what point does this particular brand or this particular organization hold themselves to the moniker of where the best fight the best when you're allowing the best to leave? You let Francis Ngannou leave, which, by the way, in turn created all this confusion in the heavyweight division, not knowing who is who and who is the undisputed, and then having this mess with Tom Aspinall and John Jones, and now you have Stipe and Alex Pereira in the mix of all that, without Alex Pereira even fighting one heavyweight fight yet, and without even Stipe Miocic having any wins in his recent bouts, going into a championship bout with John Jones. So what are you going to say about the flyweight division? DJ is no longer there. He was once who he was. Henry Cejudo is no longer there. He moved up and then retired. How can you say that it's the best fighting the best if you're letting Muhammad Mokaev go with whatever circumstances that had nothing to do with him losing? So that question right there remains to be answered for a later video, for a later time, and for a later content, and for any further information we can find as time goes on. But inshallah, I hope you enjoyed this one. That was a great night of fights. Really classic to every fight fan around the world. And by the way, it was a fight card for the hardcores. And if you showed up, well, you got your treat, because it was one of those fights that the world should not have missed out on. And I'm glad that I was there to witness it. I'm glad that I was there to cover it. And I'm glad that I was there to do all 9 hours of that live stream. So that alone, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next one, inshallah.